Hi, so today let's talk about animal reproduction. So what is animal reproduction? An individual organism exists for only a length of time. For a species to remain viable, its members must reproduce. Only through reproduction can extinction be avoided. There are two principal modes when it comes to reproduction that are found in animals. First is asexual reproduction, the next is sexual reproduction. So, what is asexual reproduction? Well, asexual reproduction is the production of offspring whose genes come from one parent without the fusion of egg and sperm. This relies completely on mitotic cell division. Now that we know what asexual reproduction is, now let's know what sexual reproduction is. Sexual reproduction is the production of offspring by diffusion. Alright, now that we know the two principal modes, now let's see. I wonder what's the difference between the two modes. Let's check. In asexual reproduction, there are clones, while in sexual reproduction, there is a genetic diversity. In asexual, its advantage is that it is fast, while in sexual, it has the ability to change. In asexual, there is fission, budding, fragmentation, and parthenogenesis, while in sexual, there is fusion of haploid gametes. Well, did you know that sexual reproduction also have mechanisms? Well, yes, they have mechanisms. There are two major types of mechanisms when it comes to fertilization. First is the external fertilization. Second is the internal fertilization. So, what is external fertilization and what is internal fertilization? Let's find out. External fertilization. Eggs are shed by a female and fertilized by a male sperm in the environment. Some aquatic invertebrates release their eggs and sperm into the surrounding water with no contact occurring between the parents. Invertebrates exhibiting external fertilization, like fishes and amphibians, courtship behavior increases the probability of successful fertilization and permits mate selection. Internal fertilization occurs when sperm are deposited in or near the female reproductive tract and fertilization occurs within the female's body. Usually requires more sophisticated reproductive systems and cooperative mating behaviors. So that concludes the mechanisms of sexual reproduction.
Good day guys, I am Julia and I'll be tackling about the reproductive system. Today I'll be tackling about the reproductive cycles and pattern. Most animals have reproductive cycles often related to changing of season.
Cycles are controlled by a combination of hormonal and environmental cues. Ovulation is the release of mature eggs. Hormonal changes influenced by day length, season, temperature, rainfall, or lunar cycles. Parthenogenesis is the development of an egg without fertilization. Parthenogenesis plays a role in the social organization of some insects. Male honeybees are produced by parthenogenetically. Female develop from fertilized eggs. Hermaphroditism is a solution found in many animals that have difficulty in finding a member of the opposite sex. Each individual has both functional male and female reproductive parts. Sequential hermaphroditism occurs in some species wherein an individual reverses its sex during lifetime.
The mammalian reproduction has two systems, the female reproductive system and the male reproductive system. The female reproductive system is said to be more complex than of the male. Its features are not only for the production of female gamete, but also to house the embryo and fetus. The internal reproductive organs are the gonads, which is commonly known as ovaries, and associated ducts and chambers. These features are involved with the movement of the gametes and the development of embryo. The clitoris is a bulb of erectile tissue at the front edge of the vestibule, which is covered by a prepuce that is a small hood of skin. Now let us identify the internal parts of the female reproductive system. The ovary are the female gonads. Ovaries are round with an irregular, nodular surface and are highly vascular. The inside of an ovary are fluid-filled sacs called follicles. When a follicle releases an egg, it is called ovulation. The cervix is the neck of the uterus, which opens into the vagina. The vagina is a thin-walled chamber that also forms the birth canal when female is undergoing labor. A hymen is a vascularized membrane that usually covers the vaginal opening from birth until ruptured by vigorous physical activity or sexual intercourse. A vestibule is a chamber-like area formed by the two pairs of skin folds covering the vaginal orifice and urethral opening. The major vestibular gland, or also known as the Bartholin gland, is a small gland that is located near the vaginal opening. The uterus is a thick muscular organ that can expand to accommodate a 4-kilogram fetus. The uterus is also known as the womb. The female reproductive system also includes the mammary glands. Mammary gland is an exocrine gland in humans and other mammals that produce milk to feed the young offspring. Now that we have identified the parts of the female reproductive system, let us delve more into these parts and determine their functions.
For the continuation of the female reproductive system, here I will be talking about the functions of the female reproductive system, starting with the external functions. Firstly, for the external functions, we will be talking about the clitoris. The clitoris is responsible for stimuli. This upper part of the clitoris is responsible for the protection and covering of the main part of the clitoris. Next is the labia. There are two parts of the labia, the majora and the minora. The labia then is responsible for the protection of the inner part of the vagina and the female reproductive system. Next is the urethral opening. The urethral opening is responsible for the excretion of urinary waste. After that is the vaginal opening. This is the pathway into the internal parts of the female reproductive system. So for the internal part of the reproductive system, firstly are the ovaries. These is where the sperm is attached to ovaries, wherein they would then be creating a fetus. After that is the oviduct. This is responsible for the pathway of the sperm to the ovaries. To get to the oviduct, they would then pass through the uterus. The uterus is responsible for the pathway of the sperm and the pathway of the blood as it sheds. The blood that is shedded would then pass through the cervix, then to the vagina. The vagina is responsible for the pathway to the uterus and the pathway out of the uterus.
So now we will talk about menstrual cycle. So menstruation is the technical term for getting a period. About once a month, females who have gone through puberty will experience menstrual bleeding. This happens because the lining of the uterus has prepared itself for a possible pregnancy by becoming thicker and richer in blood vessels. The menstrual cycle is controlled by the complex orchestra of hormones of the brain. So these two structure of the brain that controls the menstrual cycles is the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus along with the ovary. So the first process of menstrual cycle is the preparation and the release of egg for fertilization. The second one is the preparation of the uterus to receive the fertilized egg. Female mammals display two different
types of cycle, the estrous cycle and the menstrual cycle. So, first we will talk about the estrous cycle. So, the estrous cycle is the reproductive cycle of the female mammals, including the estrus, ovulation, and changes in the uterine lining. So, here in the estrous cycle, ovulation occurs after the endometrium thickens and vascularizes. If pregnancy does not occur, the endometrium is reabsorbed by the uterus. The estrus is the period of sexual activity surrounding ovulation and is the only time most non-primate mammals will copulate. The length and frequency varies widely among species. So here is a example of estrous cycle in cattle. So we have three phases of menstrual cycle. The first one is the menstrual flow phase. It's the time during which most of the endometrium is being lost from the uterus. So this is where menstruation starts. So it persists only for few days. The first day of this phase is usually designated day 1 of the cycle. The second one is the proliferative phase. Lasts for 1 to 2 weeks and involves the regeneration and thickening of the endometrium. Endometrium is thin and the beginning since most of its structure was lost during the preceding phase. So the third one is the secretory phase. Lasts about 2 weeks and is a time when the endometrium continues to develop. So, this is an example of the three phases of menstrual cycle. Lastly, the ovarian cycle parallels to the menstrual cycle. So, the first phase is the follicular. Begins this cycle and is a time during which several follicles in the ovaries begin to grow. Only one of the growing follicles will continue to mature while the others degenerate. So, ovulatory phase ends with ovulation, an event marked by eruption of the follicle and explosion of the egg from the ovary. Lastly, the luteal phase, where it begins after the ovulation. The follicular tissue remaining in the ovary after ovulation forms a corpus luteum. The corpus luteum is an endocrine tissue that secretes female hormones. So, that is how fertilization in women works.
The male reproduction system is a network of external and internal organs that does things to the sperm. It transfers, creates, and transports the sperm of the human body. I will discuss the parts of the male reproductive system. First part is the testes. The testes can be found inside the scrotum. Since the scrotum hangs outside the abdominal cavity in the scrotum, the temperature is 2 Celsius lower and sperm production can occur. The testes are comprised of highly coiled tubes surrounded by layers of connective tissue. Seminiferous tubules are located within the testes. This is where meiosis takes place. Semen is an alkaline fluid with nutrients and enzymes that the male gonads secrete. Thank you.
Seminal vesicles are located within the pelvis. They secrete fluid that partly composes the semen. Vas deferens. Its function is to carry sperm away from the testes towards the penis. Ejaculatory duct. They pass through the prostate and open into the urethra and seminal colliculus. Prostate gland help propel the seminal fluid into the urethra during ejaculation. Bulbourethral anatomy, also known as Cowper's gland, located beneath the prostate gland at the beginning of the internal portion of the penis. They add fluid to semen during the process of ejaculation. Urinary bladder. The bladder stores urine, allow urination to be infrequent and controlled. Pubic bone supports the body when sitting. Erectile tissue is any tissue that is capable of stiffening or engorging with blood. Urethra serves as a passageway for urine. Glans, tip of the penis in male mammals, or a homologous genital structure of the clitoris in female mammals. Prepuce, the fold of skin surrounding the clitoris, or technical term for foreskin. Epididymis, a highly convoluted duct behind the testis, along which sperm passes to the vas deferens. Testis, an organ which produces spermatozoa. Scrotum is a pouch of skin containing the testicles.
Spermatogenesis is sperm production in male reproductive system. It begins in puberty up until old age. It occurs in the seminiferous tubules of the testes. Spermatogenesis starts with a spermatogonium, which is a diploid cell. It creates two primary spermatocytes through mitosis. Then it creates a secondary spermatocyte through meiosis stage 1. There are two secondary spermatocytes. Then each secondary spermatocyte creates a spermatid in meiosis stage 2. So there are two spermatid for each secondary spermatocyte. And then the spermatid creates spermatozoa, or the sperm cell, when it becomes motile. One spermatogonium is equal to 8 sperm cells, since a spermatogonium is a diploid cell.